She's sitting there staring. Hi, guys. Hi, guys. It's your two PoliChics. You're not going to say anything, huh?
We have the biggest smiles.
He's like this. And I'm like, are you awake? Are you awake?
Because you started talking, so I was like, okay.
Because you was smiling. So I was looking at my eye because it looked puffy. Oh, yeah. All right,
Yeah.
let's get going.
Okay, so she already said it's your two projects. You know, it's Cindy and Tiffany.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about we're trying to have a series going where we're talking about some of the political issues that affect the presidential race. So one of the issues is the Gaza Israel conflict. And so that's what we wanted to talk about today.
Mhm.
I'm not fully educated on the situation. Like I know it's complex and I know based on research, it dates way back to what is it, Abraham days. Like if
Abraham
you're
and Sarah. Mhm.
yeah, if you're biblical, it dates way back to then. But from what I understand of it all, is it's one of my Jewish friends said it's a turf war, pretty much. And that's the lamest terms that I can put it in from what we've researched and what I've looked at. And it's a question of how do we resolve or how does Israel and Gaza resolve the issue when you also have a terrorist organization in charge, as well as how, to what extent is America going to be involved and which side should we be helping more? Should we be
Mhm.
helping the Palestinians who suffering and going through the loss of their children and their families and being attacked, or should we be helping more the Israel side who was attacked? And it just seems like with this conflict, it's been years and years, and it's a consistent. They're being attacked, and then there's a counterattack, and then there's just like this. It's almost like I'm gonna hit you and you hit me back. You remember that game where
Yeah,
you try
yeah,
to kick, and then
yeah,
somebody tries to like tap you and hit you to get
yeah.
that last
It's
hit.
never gonna
Now,
end. It's
I
never gonna
know
end.
it seems simplistic to put it like that, but it just
Yeah,
seems like and then the person will walk past you and just like tap your shoulder to get the last hit.
to get it.
It
Yeah, to
seems
get it.
kind of
Yeah,
like that, and it's just a never ending. And there's lives at stake. There's Israeli lives. There's Palestinian lives that are kind of innocent in some of it. So it's such a tough situation, and I think a lot of people are saying, they want the genocide of the Palestinians to, like a lot of the Muslim communities and key voting blocks like Detroit. They want the current president and their administration to come out and say, we need to stop the war and we need that genocide to stop, because there is uh, a lot of Palestinian kids, women, and men being killed on that side. So
mhm.
I know some of the solutions, and I'm gonna let you get into
Well, I was gonna say before you go to the solution, before you go to the solution,
go, go ahead, go ahead.
um, the things about it that I thought of, it's obviously like I totally agree with everything you said. It is to me a genocide. It is brown people to some extent. Um, it is thousands of years, like you said, Abraham, if you just a very brief, just to understand what's going on there and why it's probably not going to end, is because Abraham is the father of the Jewish nation, but Sarah, his wife, was promised a baby, and she was older and felt like she wasn't going to be able to have one. She was over 90, or she was like 90 or something like years
Yeah.
old, and she was promised to have a baby, so they didn't
Which,
believe.
can you imagine? I'm
Can you
sorry, I'm
imagine?
50.
I'm
I'm like,
53 and I ain't having nothing. And
wait,
so,
you're not 50 yet. I'm almost 50, but go ahead.
right. But can you imagine? So God told him that I'm going to give you a baby. She laughed. She didn't think it was true. And so then to solve their problem, she gave her servant to him
Mhm.
and said, "Hey, make her have the baby with you because she can still have children." And so that was Hagar. And so Hagar had Ishmael, and Ishmael is the father of the Palestinian nation. So, or of the Arab nation.
Mhm.
And so he had went on to have 12 kids. And then they had Isaac. Now Sarah gets pregnant with Isaac. and they have a bunch of that Isaac, one of the Isaac has is the son, and he winds up having 12. So the 12 tribes are the ones of Israel. So they got Israel has 12 tribes, and Arabs have 12 tribes that they connect themselves to. And now Sarah and Hagar are jealous. They have this little thing going between them. So Sarah says, put her out. So Hagar goes away with Ishmael, and then he's the father of his nation. So then they already, like you said, it is a turf war, but it's also a religious and a spiritual war. That's why anybody saying that they're going to end it, like Mr. Trump said, he's going to end it in 5 minutes, it will be over. It's delusional because it ignores the spiritual, the religious, as well as the geographical thing of turf. Because Abraham was promised this land, but Abraham had Isaac and Ishmael, and they both, Ishmael is the older of the two.
Yep.
He feels like, and usually in the Jewish or religious cultures, the older child gets the promise. So how do you pass Ishmael and give it to Isaac, which would be the part of the fatherhood of the Jewish nation? So that's the very brief summary of it. And that explains why it's never going away. And let's not, and based on hearing that, they are cousins, they are brothers.
Yep.
They're brothers. They're related. Palestinians and Israelites are related. In fact, like they were talking about the DNA of most of Lebanon is like 90%. Like you can trace their DNA back and find that most of it is of the Arab nation. And when Lot was born, Lot had his, when the ark happened and he had children. It's
the lineage.
It's historical.
That's what I was gonna say. The lineage it dates back to biblical times, and it's
so
just
you ain't getting rid of that. How you getting rid of that?
It's like you said, and that's a good point. It's spiritual, it's geographical, and then it's also, there's
religious,
it's just it's so complex. So when somebody says, "Oh, I'll resolve it," I will resolve it overnight when it hasn't been resolved for decades. And so, and like I said, it's a hard thing to resolve because one, if someone came into your house and attacked you like they did October 7th, or what is it? It's coming up on a year.
2023,
October 7th, I
right?
believe. Yeah, it's coming up on a year. If someone came into your house and just slaughtered everyone, or raped and slaughtered, and gave no regard to women, children, babies, you would want revenge, and you would want
over and over again. You wouldn't want to stop.
You would want to defend yourself and make sure that this regime that's coming in doing this is done. It's dead. And so the problem with that is when the counterattacks happen, excuse me, when the counterattacks happen, what happens is the Palestinian people are raising kids that are seeing their cousins and their family being slaughtered, and they're becoming more radicalized in some ways, and then they want to fight against the Israel oh gosh
Israelites
Israeli people. They want to buck up against them. So that's where it just doesn't stop. And then it's easier to radicalize someone who's angry and hurting because they're seeing stuff happen to their family. So
but go right there though, Tiff. Go right there. And that's the point that why it won't stop. Well, I'm not hopeful that it will, because
you're hopeful that it will, you just don't trust.
Right. I'm not right. Thank you. Yeah. I don't trust that it will. I am hopeful, but I don't
want to get you canceled.
Yeah. She says she don't hope it ever happens. No, I don't. I mean that I don't see it happening. I'm not optimistic that it'll happen.
Right. That's the
because if you look at that day, October 7th last year, that's not that was them being angry about what Israel did to them before that. So it's like what you said, you slap my hand, I slap your hand. Israel has been occupying Gaza for all these years to where they need permission to move. Now, I have friends that live in Palestine. So they need papers to move around. They are occupied. So just like you said, if somebody slaughters your family, would you ever forgive them? But now Palestine is saying, but if somebody's an occupying force in your land for whatever amount of years, 50 years, 100, and randomly beating you, randomly oppressing you, eventually because every time the talks happen, they break down at some point. And now y'all are never going to leave my house. So
Right.
they now felt radicalized to do that, to come in and say, listen, you want to stay here and occupy? How about we kill all of y'all? How about that?
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
Israel is saying, we can't let y'all off the hook. So what looks
Right.
like genocide is the fear that if we just smack you on the hand for what you did to
Yep.
us in October, you're going to come back and grow
Yeah.
more. So
Yep.
it's like
It's
cancer.
that
Do you
never
kill all the
ending.
cancer, or do
Yeah.
you just let a little bit live?
And that's a great point. It's that never ending. Like I said, for to put it in layman's term, it's that tit for tat. Like, where does the tit for tat ever end? And how
Yeah.
does it end? Because I mean, you can have talks, and I know there's been peace talks, there's been ceasefires in the past, and but then there's always someone, like, it's almost like, okay, so we had this fight, we had this
Mm-hmm.
issue, we resolved it, but then one day you're like, remember that day? Remember that day? And then we're talking and we're
And
like,
you worked
I
up
remember
again.
that day. And then we're
Yeah.
like, well, let's just, and that's what happened. It builds up again. And
Yeah.
I want to say, from what we see, is Israel is usually not the aggressor. I don't see, at least from what I researched, I may be
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but I don't usually see that Israel is the aggressor in most of the attacks that happen. It's usually a counter. And there was someone, a political figure, that said, Israel can just really wipe out Gaza if they really wanted to, like,
Mm-hmm.
have that full force. But it's just a question of what's the end game and what's the end result. Like you said, if you give them a slap on the hand, they're gonna come back and do the same thing again, because now, yeah, okay, you killed a couple dozen, now what? I'll come back
Mm-hmm.
and do the same thing. But what do you do to end this? And no
Right.
one's been able to resolve it. No one. So
Right.
that's one of the key. So when we say we wanted to talk about election topics, guys, that's one of the key issues. So when you hear um, Kamala Harris and Trump talk about, oh, the war in Gaza, or the Israeli war, or the Gaza conflict, whichever way they refer to it, it's talking about how they would resolve that issue. How would they get in, and how would America use its resources to either assist one side or the other, or both? And which side do they stand on? Like, who,
Yeah.
there's a lot, even athletes are like, they're standing with the Palestinians, and they're
Mm-hmm.
standing with, it's such a hard, it's such a hard topic, which is why it
Yeah.
hasn't been resolved. It just, it's so hard.
To me, if you have an opinion, you're not going to be right,
Yeah.
because you're not there. You're not Palestinian. You're not an Israeli. You're
Hmm.
not part of what that spiritual, geographical, and religious issue is. They cannot seem to get to the table to talk to each other or to trust each other, because it's like, we make this agreement, we walk away, and y'all gonna secretly do this.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
both sides. And
Yeah.
it's, to go back to your
Definitely.
point about Israel not being the aggressors, it's not that they're the aggressors, but they may have microaggressions. Like, if you're occupying my land,
Yeah.
and if your goal is to, you don't want a joint territory. You said the whole
Mm.
thing is yours. So you're never going to really agree. That's what Netanyahu, and he really wants war. That's why now he's bombing Lebanon. That's why Egypt is looking to be involved. And it's so interesting, if you read the Bible, that you would see like Egypt is part of the historical aspects, because they had children together, intermingled, and people like, what Israel, what Egypt got to do with this? All of
Yeah.
those territories, Lebanon, Egypt,
Yeah.
Syria, those are all the lands, the holy area that everything is really surfaced around. And so anything outside of those people, and remember, if you remember, I don't know, in the 50s, 1950, I don't know when it was, and I could get it confused, but there was a time when there was sort of, they were moving in terms of a joint situation, and then Europe got involved in it, America got involved in it, and America and Europe and stuff have always been pushing for Israel to be a nation by itself, one nation, because then that leads us into, that's going into religious, but it leads us into the
Yeah.
prophecy that Jesus is going to come back, because Jesus is going to return when the nation is united.
Yeah.
So the people of religious, obviously Jews and stuff are not believers, but people that are Christian believers want that to happen. And so
Yeah.
they are now pushing the candidates. to support Israel, to continue to support Israel. And now, like you said, Detroit, there's a lot of Muslim people. I didn't even know that, like in
Yeah, that's a
Minnesota and
hive.
different areas. And
Yeah.
so those people are expecting, but what I want to say on this part when you were talking was, not only do they want, the candidates are making promises or saying things, but people are holding the candidates to a standard that's impossible.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
cannot expect Trump or Kamala to do anything to solve that issue. It's
Yeah.
not realistic. It
Yeah.
really isn't realistic. So should it be on our, even on our platform? Should that be on our platform? Because it's not gonna, I don't believe it's gonna
It's
happen
not an
because it's
easy,
religious.
yeah, it's not an easy solution. Like I said, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. Like
Yeah,
it would have been resolved
it would have been done already.
already. So it's not, it's just not an easy
So
situation. So
should
I
we
don't know,
hold them? Should we hold, say, oh, Kamala didn't make a good solution for Gaza and Trump didn't make a good solution for Gaza? Should we really say that's
well,
the
we
reason why
probably
I'm not
shouldn't do
voting?
it like this. but
But should we
but
say that's why we're not voting for them?
well, I don't think we should hold them based on their stance on it because, like you said, no matter which way you stand, there's arguments for both sides, and there's innocent people on both
Yep.
sides being harmed. Their way of life is being interrupted. So you can't. It's so hard. It's just like I said, it's really hard. But
Yeah.
at the same time, they will be directing resources from America
That,
to help. And that's
that,
where the conflict
that's the
comes in. So
problem.
where are you putting your resources? Are you saying you're going to
Yeah.
put your resources to help Israel? Or are you saying you're going to put your resources to help Gaza? So that's where the conflict
That is the
of
problem.
opinion comes in. So it's like, well, what do you do? Which candidate? There's no right or wrong.
And I
It's
think
so
both of them
such a
support
hard thing.
Israel. I think both of them will not do will not, a ceasefire deal, guys. It would mean that they have to do something like stop giving Israel arms. They would have to
Yeah.
stop supplying Israel with weapons, right? So they did it at one point. Like she said, Kamala mentioned it. We put a pause on giving them bombs.
Mhm.
So that pause is ended. I think both candidates pretty much are in the same. I'm not going to stop them from doing that
Yeah.
because
It's just
Hamas
hard.
is a terrorist group, and to give anything to Palestine, like why don't they give Palestine weapons? Because you'd be giving it to terrorists.
Yeah.
So you can't do that
Oh,
either.
that's a really good point.
Yeah, you
That's
can't
a
do
really
that
good
either.
point. Like because it will wind up for you, but for those people that don't know, Gaza is run and overrun by the Hamas, which
That's
you keep
terrorists.
hearing. It's a
Mhm.
terrorist group. It has nothing to do with the people that live there or the
No.
Palestinians that are there. It they're running the government, almost like how would happen in Haiti, where there's gangs and
Oh
people
yeah,
that's in charge,
they
quote
killed the
unquote, in
leaders.
the background. Right.
Yeah,
They're in charge. Um, what do you call it, unofficially in
yeah.
charge. So
It's a
yeah, the
coup. It's a
weapons
coup.
will wind up in the hands of the wrong people.
Right.
You can't arm the nation, the people of the
No.
nation, with that. So what do you do? It's I
This
can't
is.
keep
I'm
saying
glad it
it, but
ain't
it's
me.
such a difficult
Yeah.
situation to resolve, and it's such a there's like I said, it goes back to biblical times, and we have not been able to resolve this. And
Yeah.
the issue is, if you sit down to the table and you say this is the negotiated point, you're always on a lookout for, if I just kicked you out of my house and I say okay, and I know you really wanted to stay in my house, and I say okay, well, we came up with an agreement. I'm always looking over my shoulder, and I'm always
Yep.
leery of whether or not you'll come back. And then it's always you
Yep.
coming back when I least expect it. So guys, this is
Your
it's
kids,
a
your
heavy,
grandkids, somebody
yeah,
coming back.
it's
Somebody
a
coming back.
heavy topic.
Yeah.
It's such a heavy topic. So but it's something that is front and center when it comes to questions that's asked at debates, and when it comes to questions that's asked at town halls, and when it comes to making a decision on your presidential candidate. So I don't know.
And
I mean,
unfortunately, the people asking the question, maybe they don't realize how serious it is. Because I probably wouldn't even ask that question because I don't foresee, other than them two getting together and solving
mhm.
it themselves, any European interference, American interference, all these people interfering that don't really have a stake in it, other than they're getting involved in it because they think this one or that one. I think outside of those two, them trying to
Mhm.
figure out how to have a state and how to live together, that's going to be a
Yeah.
war forever to me. If you don't,
Yeah.
if there's somebody doesn't get, the two of them don't come to the table, it's going to be forever. And anybody putting their 2 cents in is just lying and saying they can solve it. You cannot solve that problem.
Yeah, that's hard. That is hard. So, guys, tell us what you think. Tell us your opinions always, as we always say, like, comment, subscribe. We're on YouTube as PoliChics. I had to think about it.
PoliChics.
PoliChics.
Yeah.
Everywhere else on X, Instagram, Facebook, and on Gmail at 2PoliChics. So
Yes.
just reach out to us, or you can text us personally, like you do sometimes, or message us. Whichever way,
Yes.
there's a lot of forms of communication, but
We
you know
here.
how to find us. Okay. Bye,
All right.
guys.
Bye, guys.